Navigate the complexities of law enforcement, officer safety, and risk management with former NYPD leaders Rodney Harrison and Rudy Hall. Serious topics, unfiltered perspectives. This is The Risk Room.
Hello and welcome. I think we're at episode 14.
Episode 14, sir.
Episode 14. Who thought I would make it this long with you?
Coming out the gate.
Coming out knives and hammers. It's all love, though. It's all love. I got to ask, where the hell are you? Because you're sitting inside of a closet. Are you being kidnapped?
No, actually, I'm in Cancun right now, and compliments to my little sister, Shamika Galate. She's one of Nassau County's boldest. They have a difficult job in that corrections area, and I want to salute them for the work that they do in their role. But anyway, she's having a destination wedding. I was lucky enough to crash it or somehow make the bottom of the wedding list. But I'm here and I'm having a good time. But I'm also realize that work needs to be done, and I'm just lucky to be here with you and doing this podcast.
Awesome. So I guess 20 other people declined to come to the wedding. So
yeah.
And they got to you. All right. Listen, it's good.
Listen, I'll take it, brother. As long as I'm here and enjoying myself.
Enjoy. So we got an interesting topic today. But before we get to that, I got a question for you. So I'm down here in Florida, right outside of Orlando. And on the news a couple of weeks ago, they had an incident where these young people are taking over the streets. And these kids, I don't know, it must have been like 50 of them. They're on bikes and e-scooters and mopeds, and it is a roving band going through downtown Orlando. And at one point, they went through a red light, and there's a ambulance trying to get through the intersection. So the ambulance actually has the green light, has its emergency lights on, and it can't go anywhere because these kids are just taking over the street as they pass through. And it's not a unique thing to Florida or New York. It's happening all over. So my question for you is, where does the responsibility lie? I'm to the point now where, and listen, I'm a father of 4, and if one of my kids did something, I would think I'd be responsible. My kid was playing ball outside and broke your window, I got to pay for it. Do you think parents should be held responsible when these young people are engaging in behavior like this? I think actually, which episode was it when we actually showed the video? I think it was in Chicago, where these kids are running down the street and they're running on top of cars and damaging cars. Like, who's paying for this stuff?
Yeah. That's a tricky one, knowing that, I had 3 daughters myself, and, they all, I want to say, did the right thing. But one of them, and I'm not going to say any names, I had to put a foot in her behind a little bit more than the others. So, I will say that I think there should be some type of policy where if your child does something inappropriate, the parents are given a warning, and they're giving also the services to help that person.
Oh, we had a little glitch. So I think the point Rodney was making was that services should be provided to the family. Oh, there, you're back. You with us, Rod?
So I think there should be services that should be shared to get the young person the assistance. And then after that, if there's something that occurs post this notification, post the attempt in getting them the help, that now the parents should be held accountable. Because unfortunately, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you have in your line of work, during investigations, parents, sometimes we don't think that our kids can do anything wrong. That wasn't my son, or that wasn't my daughter. They would never do that. And I've seen that so often through my, what I call my undergrad career in policing, where, we would notify parents that, yeah, listen, we're locking your child up for some type of crime. And the first thing that comes out their mouth is, nah, you guys are just trying to frame my son, or you're just trying to arrest my daughter to get a number, to get quotas, whatever it could be. And the truth of the matter is this is some of the difficulties that go in policing that hinders our relationships. So I think that there needs to be a better strategy. I think there should be a notification process. I think there should be some type of assistance that we are trying to provide. Once again, there's a lot of these parents are single parents where there's no other parent in the household, where the mother or the father is doing all the work and there's nobody else helping out to keep guidance into those children that are headed down the wrong direction. But let's try to get them to help. And if they're not taking that assistance with them, then shame on them. And then if something happens after that, tag you're in. It falls on the parents. That's just
so in your scenario, child, I don't know, he was running around the streets of Orlando and was jumping on cars and damaged somebody's car. First time he's ever been in trouble. Hey, parents, here's some assistance. Here's some programs you can get into.
Correct.
This one's on us. Next time he gets in trouble, what happens? And I ask him, like, listen, we know if it's a crime, there's an arrest made, whether it's juvenile or adult, that we got that part. Yeah. But we're talking about things where it's not necessarily, it's like traffic violations, it's low level stuff, but there's a cost to it, right? So if a kid comes and breaks my mirror and takes off on his e-scooter, like, who's paying for it? And I get a lot of times kids may be coming from difficult backgrounds, and there's a financial burden on the family to have to pay a fine or to have to pay the cost of repairs. But I also believe that if a parent was held responsible, they would be more on top of their children also. They're going to know where you're going. Why is it? We've seen cases, and I know like I know, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, you got 14-year-olds out in the street, right? There has to be, we're a country where responsibility it's a fleeting thing at all levels, from government to local communities, all races and all financial backgrounds. Accountability and responsibility is almost a lost art. Yeah. So when we think about with young people, the families have to have some kind of responsibility, right?
Yeah. Well, once again, it's this. You talk about a very, very difficult age, 13, 14, 15. And I'm sure you've seen it where kids are rebellious, like they're not listening to their parents. And if the mother, sometimes it's even grandparents that are raising these kids, they're not listening to their parents. They're going rogue. And the people that are their role models, the people that they listen to, are the individuals in the streets. And, so as much as we want to sit here and look at the parent and say, hey, you're doing something wrong, and I'm sure everybody in law enforcement has seen this, well, they don't listen to me either. So, like, what do you want me to do? So there's a little bit of a gray area here. It's not a cookie cutter situation where you can always blame the parent, because the parents don't have any control quite often in so many different family situations as well. So that's something that where I'm not sure we can always hold a parent accountable, but we do got to try to figure a way of trying to get some of these kids some help, get the parents involved. And if they do need some type of assistance, what are we doing in society to get them that help? Okay.
All right. Well, let's table that conversation there, because I think it's worthy of a much further dialogue and exploration into some solutions to some of these problems. But today we have a topic I gotta tell the audience. So our guest is Vic Cardona, and Vic. First time I met Vic's probably about a little over a year ago. Yeah. And Vic showed me a presentation on ghost guns, and I will tell you, Vic scared the shit out of me. And I suspect some of you today may be a little scared after you watch this episode, because Vic is providing us some real information, and information is not discussed nearly enough. And it is a real threat, and it is a threat that's growing. So I'd like to welcome to the Risk Room retired Detective Vic Cardona. Vic, how are you, sir?
Hey, gentlemen. Good morning. How are you guys? Thank you for having me. I am doing fantastic.
Great, man. Great to have you with us. And Vic, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and what brought you to creating LNC and the work you're doing now.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I'm a former U.S. Marine, 99 to 03, 2004. Joined the New York City Police Department. Thank you. I joined the New York City Police Department. I started my career off in the South Bronx in the 4-4 precinct, 4-4 for life, for those listening out there. From there, I decided, I was like, listen, the Bronx wasn't a hard enough place to be, so why don't we go to OCCB and become a narco ranger? From there, I went to narcotics, spent about 7 years in OCCB. And then from there, it was time to move on. And I slowly made my way over to the Intelligence Bureau. And there was I worked with some great guys, particularly a sergeant that we all know very well. And he afforded me an opportunity to try something out with regards to ghost guns. There was a time back in 2020, kind of pre-pandemic, the ATF came to us and said, hey, we see something on the horizon. What can you guys do with it? What can you help us out with? And from there, I kind of took my investigative background. I helped develop the initial model for investigating individuals manufacturing the original buy, build, shoot kits. It was stuff that you can order online. Essentially, you go online, you buy this kit, it comes to your house, you get some initial tools from a hardware store, nothing crazy, some files, a Dremel tool, tape, so forth. And then watch a YouTube video. And then next thing you know, depending on how good you are with your hands, anywhere from an hour, and if you're pretty good with it, you could get it down to like 30 minutes, and you had a functioning firearm. So from there, myself and the guys there, we were rocking and rolling and getting these guns off the street. Our main goal was to get them before they actually got it into the street in the wrong hands. It was a very proactive approach of policing. And then from there, we started seeing a trend, 3D printed weapons. So essentially, the bottom pieces of the gun that were mold injected that you could buy commercially, unserialized, you can now 3D print from your home. Any questions so far? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, Vic. I just want to first and foremost thank you for your service. Protecting this country. Anybody that goes into the armed forces and then goes into law enforcement, that's a double duty of service to the people of this country. So I want to salute you for the work that you've done. Secondly, and Rudy's right, when we first kind of get an understanding about ghost guns, we may not realize how detrimental and concerning it is. And I wanted to real quickly jump in for my leaders in law enforcement. And I'm raising my hand and saying I could have done better myself, is we need to make sure we're prioritizing training the rank and file regarding, everybody having awareness and knowledge of ghost guns and detecting them and, getting the information if you come across it, how to handle it and who do you notify. And there's a lot of certain aspects that come with a ghost gun coming into possession, which I know you're going to break down, but I just wanted to make sure I share that message. Leadership, and I'm raising my hand, I could have done better. We're putting our officers at risk if we are not training them about this ongoing threat that's occurring within our country. And don't wait till something goes wrong and then start putting something in place. I think you need to forecast and make sure every single cop in your agency knows about how dangerous these ghost guns are and how it can cause so much damage to a community, to a event or other things that are going on within your jurisdiction.
So, that's a great thing you mentioned, Rodney. And actually, that is something that myself and LNC, we're actually launching in Q4 an e-learning platform, an LMS. And it's going to be an education platform for not just law enforcement, but for the security industry as well, where it can educate individuals about the threat, how it evolved, what our vulnerabilities are, what steps you can take to best position yourself. So it's a great course, and we're launching it. We'll hopefully have a little sneak preview for everyone very shortly, but we're very proud to actually announce that coming out. First ones to hear it, but it's coming out.
Awesome. Hey, Vic, let me just backtrack a little bit. So you said in 2020, ATF came to you guys in NYPD?
Yes.
And before the ATF came, had you had any knowledge or ideas about ghost guns? Ever heard of them? Was this totally new to you?
So let's work on that term ghost gun a little bit, right? That's like a political media construct for a name. It's the boogeyman in the room, which it should be, right? But essentially, a ghost gun is just a privately made firearm or privately manufactured firearm, right? And, depending on, federally, individuals are allowed to make their own firearms for personal use. But depending on what states you live in, you may not be allowed to. So it all varies, right? But for this general purpose of going back and forth, if you ever hear me use the words private PMF, privately made firearm, privately manufactured firearm, we're all going to be talking about the unserialized firearms, the ghost guns.
Okay, so ghost guns is not just 3D printed; it includes anything that belongs as privately made, no serial number.
As long as it's never had a serial number, you're never going to get a background check from it. There's no paper trail, so forth.
Okay. Now you also had some. I don't know if you had some images. I think you wanted to show.
So yeah, so we can. I guess we could rewind if we could pop up what that during that 2020 era, the buy build shoot kit. Just for the audience, if they don't know what that originally looked like, this is an example of it. It was there was a company that was out there out of California. Essentially, you can go onto their website, and this is one of many. So it's not just this particular company. But you could go out in there and you could basically buy everything you need. I mean, they even went as far as to give you the jig, even the drill bits for it, and these are some of the household items that we were talking about. Some Scotch tape that you would tape up the frame, your Dremel tools so you could drill in, sand some parts down, snippers because there were some little tabs you had to clip off, some files, and essentially, like I said, recap before, basically website, credit card information, shipped to your house, 45 minutes to an hour, you had a functioning firearm.
So, go ahead, Rod, you can ask a question.
Yeah. Hey, Vic, just one of the things I would like for you to share, maybe you were going to get to it, so I apologize. Detecting these ghost guns that go through certain metal detectors or anatometers that can kind of let somebody know if somebody's carrying this type of contraband. Can you just real quickly talk about the bigger concern about how this type of item could get into a location and now somebody could really be a threat inside of an event or a concert, something that's going on and really could cause a mass shooting incident?
Okay, so let's dive a little bit into 3D printing, right? Essentially, with a 3D printer, you need one of these. These are in the medium high end. You can make ones with cheaper ones like $200, $150. You need one of these. You need what's called filament, PLA filament. And then you would need a file. Go to the internet. It's all open source. Once you go there and you find the file that, the gun design that you want or the weapon system you want. And let's just not forget, it's not just firearms that you can deal with. You could also do stabbing instruments, brass knuckles, housings for IEDs, and so forth. So if you think it, you can do it. It's, it's the beauty of additive manufacturing, 3D printing, but the also scary part of it because it's so easily accessible and so easy to do, right? And now, think about it real simple. Okay, well, what's this stuff made out of? It's plastic. All right. More plastic, less metal. Well, what does a metal detector do, right? It detects metal, right? And so just to give you a little idea, there's individuals that make private designs. So instead of it being like a gun that looks like a Glock or like a SIG and they 3D print the lower, there's now advanced designs that are out there where individuals can make their own types of guns. For an example, here's one, it's called a Rhino, right? It's a little 6-shot revolver, but if you look at it, it only needs 2 actual things to operate, the screw here and the spring here, right? But when these individuals go out there and they sell these quote unquote kits, completion kits, they add this piece right here. This metal piece, which gives you the option to pop in and out because it's not permanent. This is what makes what they call firearm UFA compliant. Under the Undetectable Firearms Act, any gun that's manufactured is required to have a certain amount of metal in it so that it can be detected by, X-ray magnetometers, metal detectors, and so forth. So what ends up happening is when you leave options like this, like take the weight out, and that's the bulk of the metal of the weapon system. And now you create a design of a weapon like this, where it doesn't have enough metal in it. This is where you could see some of the vulnerability happens. And actually, I think we could pop up a little quick video.
Hey, Vic, before we play the video, quick question. So that weapon without the metal piece in is still capable of being fired?
Yeah, without this is just add weight. This is literally just add weight. This is now a compliant weapon system, and now this is not a compliant.
Wow.
Real simple. And some of the websites that sold these completion kits in the beginning, they were selling it as an option. So you can buy it UFA compliant or not buy it UFA compliant. So they know what they're doing. You know? But, as time goes on, things get heard on the internet. Listen, they want to do a little CYA themselves. So then they started saying UFA compliant. But it doesn't say that it's mandatory to put in. It just says that it's compliant, the kit.
Right. Yeah, please play the video.
So here's an example. If you could pause it real quick, if possible. I just wanted to highlight. So it's going to be an individual. He's going to be walking through a radiometal metal detector. And just for the audience, in the beginning, you're going to see in the bottom, a little red light goes off. So those little red lights that you see, it's going to be on the bottom right of the screen. That kind of tells the screener where the threat is at, right? And what section of part of the body is the threat. So in this instance, the role player is going to be walking through. You see how it hits at the bottom, that little blinking light. And the reason for it is because the type of shoes the individual is wearing actually has metal inside of it. Now take note of that. The shoes have metal in it, and it made it trigger, right? Now we said, okay, role player, take it off, come through, walk through, no hit. And what do we have here? He pulls out the revolver, and then inside a 3D printed banana, but inside of it a razor blade. And as you can see from here, that's kind of like where we're at with some of these detection things. Depending on the calibration, the education, what your model you have, that's how vulnerable you can be to some of these things.
Hey, is it safe to say that when you're dealing with security, and actually don't give enough credit and support to our civilian security folks, because sometimes they are the force multiplier in a lot of situations?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Particularly when it comes to this threat landscape.
Right.
There's some technology that's flawless. There's some technology that is great. But you know what? The real world is the end user, because they want the flow rate of traffic. We want my people in. I won't want my guests interrupted. That now puts pressure on the screeners, and the establishment. It jeopardizes, high rate of traffic versus vulnerabilities. And, this is and again, one of the other things we offer is that secondary screening tactics, right? That's going to be part of the LMS system, is to educate, hey, go beyond trusting just technology, incorporate some of these older techniques, create hybrids, understand what your threat landscape is. Majority of the people that purchase different types of security, they don't even know their vulnerabilities when it comes to 3D printed weapons. So that, people that purchase these machines, they might not know, their limits of what they can do. And, once you know your limits, then you can create the correct policies, incorporate the correct training, and you can best position yourself.
Yeah. You think about places where there's, like a mass. I went to the Knick game last season, and there's thousands of people coming into the Garden. And the security's there, and they're doing to go through the metal detector scanner. All right, put your keys in your wallet there. But in reality, if you want to get a weapon, you can. And now with a threat like this, I'm not on wood, God forbid it ever happens, but you see how vulnerable we all are, especially in large crowds and arenas and places of this nature. Hey, Rod, you have a question?
And especially, we talk about weapon systems and designs. Here's an example. Someone decided to take a design and make a single shot Derringer out of a banana.
Oh, wow.
there's all kinds of different types of ways of hiding the weapon systems. And Rodney, I know you wanted to ask something, but imagine something like this. You give this to your little daughter. She's running around, and it just looks like anyone could be confused. Oh, it's my daughter's lunchbox. But inside of it, it's concealing. It's concealing a weapon. And listen, the efforts behind the designs is incredible. But unfortunately, there's individuals that are out there that are going to take advantage of all this stuff and use it maliciously.
Hey, Vic, I got a quick question. I'm sorry to jump in. My first question to you is, are industries investing in training their security staff? And Rudy asked a very good question, or made a statement about, we got to make sure that we recognize our security and the work that they do. But are people investing in making sure that their security personnel have an understanding of these ghost guns? And my second question for you, sir, is what industries are the most vulnerable right now? Because, and Rudy talked about a Knick game and sports events. I'm assuming concerts. I'm going to throw it just a suggestion out there. Probably TSA. I don't know if they get the training at all. But what industries have you seen that you could say are the most vulnerable regarding, hey, listen, if you don't start trading your security, if you don't have the appropriate technology, you are at the highest level of risk when it comes to this emerging threat?
So I will say to your first part, as far as training, absolutely not. There's not enough. The majority of the training that people are getting are what they see on the news. Okay. Or they're just going to get whatever briefing they get that gets pushed out from whatever sources they get from. That's going to be the extent of their training that they're getting. But there's nothing like getting actual training where you're actually feeling it in your hands, you're running it through your equipment, and you actually get an understanding what you're vulnerable, how you're vulnerable, and what it feels like. That's actually the real training. A flyer, something that you get on an email, is not going to cut it. And it's nowhere enough training for that. As far as the other part, vulnerabilities, I mean, let's just say it's endless, right? Like, we go from the highest points where we want to talk about, in law enforcement, our court systems, sporting venues, some of our, and especially here, those are like, especially sacred places. Like, listen, I want to go with my family to a game and enjoy myself. I want to go to a concert and enjoy myself. I want to go to a festival and enjoy myself. But where it's also even more alarming, where places don't have the proper security measures, like our schools, our hospitals, even some of our workspaces, because a lot of workspaces now have maker spaces where they 3D print stuff like that. So you're vulnerable to insider threat. Our children, depending, most likely they don't have the right management software in there that understands these files and how they work, and with geometry detection and something like that. So it ranges everywhere from government to local law enforcement, our K through 12, private. It's anything you could think of.
Okay. Hey, you mentioned earlier, you were referring to the printers you have, and you were saying yours are probably in the mid to higher range end of printers, but you can get them as cheap as for a few $100s, right?
Listen, if you Black Friday, it's coming up in a couple of months. Probably get ones for $150.
And they can do the same thing that your printer can do. I guess it just takes longer. It
takes longer. It'll take a little longer, maybe not as nice.
Right.
But yeah, you for the most part, you can get this done. You could easily print yourself out brass knuckles or plastic knuckles. You can easily create yourself stabbing instruments. Some of the other components from in here. So yeah.
Wow. And I asked that question before. I'm going to get you, Rod. I have a cousin, and I'll give him a shout out, Derek Cook, who's in Atlanta, extremely talented. And as a hobby, he actually uses 3D printers to print like these figurines from movies, like the He-Man movie was coming out. And he does a detailed artwork and painting them, and then he sells them. And so when you think about 3D printers, there's so many uses for them that do not have nefarious purposes, right? But is there certain things that parents should be looking for if they have a 3D printer in their home and young folks in the house, or even maybe an adult child who may have some mental health issues? Is there something that you should be looking for to know they're printing weapons?
So listen, every parent should have an understanding what their child is doing, right? And I guess I'm gonna touch on that a little bit more when it comes to our children, and then it's gonna lead into kind of like our school.
Okay.
3D printed weapons and the concept of it is actually it's all over the internet. It's in our pop culture. It's in our video games. You know, Modern Warfare 3, right? One of the largest video games pretty much ever played, right? Inside of it, one of the promo videos for it, it's a scenario where, you know, they're on a plane, and then you could see like the stewardess walking with a little cart, and out of nowhere you see this, you know, this guy, all mysterious. He's going in his pocket and he's taking out all these different gun parts. But when you actually look at it, it's actually 3D printed. So the concept is there, you're right. They're putting it out there. You know, Grand Theft Auto is coming out, you know, real shortly. They have a patch now to actually for a 3D printed gun. It's called the FGC9. It stands for Fuck Gun Control. And that actual weapon system is actually going to be a part of a patch for that game. So it's in there. So that's like kind of that first part, right? You know, it's like, you know, what are our kids watching? What are they playing? How they're getting influenced by it, right? What's the attraction? Let's say, you know, the kid's like, oh, I want to update my weapon system for this game, you know, Call of Duty, Fortnite, whatever. They go to the internet. Next thing you know, the algorithm thinks, oh, like, oh, you're trying to build something. Oh, well, look, you can actually build this. Oh, wait, I see something for a printer. I have a 3D printer. Can I 3D print this, right? Now you start with that. Now you could just see kind of that, how that just goes and goes on, right?
Right.
Now it goes even worse, right? Our schools now, and it's great because, gentlemen, when we were in school compared to, you know, how they're teaching kids these days from we're in and the technology and stuff like that, all these schools have printers, you know.
Yeah.
You know, depending on how they're set up and what software's in place, you know, there's people out there that, you know, that maliciously hide the gun file under a different context. So like, for an example, they'll call it a toy, but it's not till when you download the file and you start going through it that you realize it's actually parts for a gun.
Wow.
Right? So that's actually one of the reasons why LNC, we partnered up with a great company. Their name is Print and Go, and they have a fantastic software that's perfect for like private sectors, for like schools, hospitals, and so forth. It's actually called 3D Gun, and it actually has the capability of actually not just looking at the file, but looking at it in the digital aspect, right? In the ones and zeros, let's just say. Right? And it'll prevent it from going. But what's great is it maintains the privacy, right? So those are the big things that we want. So like whatever you're working is whatever you're working on. But if you have an individual that has malicious intent and tries to do it, this software is able to prevent that from happening. There's actually it's about a 2-minute video, but it's a great little video to show and showcase that type of software.
In additive manufacturing, not every file should reach the machine unchecked. When a user uploads a print file, 3D Gunt analyzes the geometry itself, not the file name, not the metadata, and not a stored copy of the design, but the actual geometric markers associated with regulated firearm components. If a restricted pattern or risk is detected, the print is stopped before it reaches the machine. The design file is not stored, and the system moves on. But the system is not designed to create friction where it is not needed. When the same user uploads a standard industrial bracket, 3D Gunt runs the same analysis and clears the file, allowing legitimate production to continue without interruption. For licensed professionals, the workflow adapts. Verified gunsmiths, law enforcement teams, certified manufacturers, or approved institutional users can be authorized at account level. In these cases, the system does not simply block the print. It applies permissions, documents the event, and maintains a clear compliance trail. In schools, universities, public labs, and shared printing environments, administrators can define who is allowed to print what. Students operate within controlled permissions, teachers can supervise or approve specific cases, and administrators keep visibility across the full printing environment. 3D GUNT does not need to store the design file to make a decision. It works like a compliance scanner. It reads the relevant markers, returns a result, and moves on. Your intellectual property stays yours. As regulation evolves, compliance needs to fit into real workflows. 3D GUNT can be integrated wherever it is needed, at file upload, during print preparation, in the printer queue, through partner API, or as part of an internal audit system. 3D GUNT is a hardware-agnostic compliance layer for additive manufacturing, multi-brand, permission-based, and privacy-first. Built for the next generation of responsible 3D printing.
Wow.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. It's a great product that we're very proud to have a part of us that we're offering currently. It's particularly part of one of our school services, but not limited to any of those other places that are interested in it. And it's not just here in New York where we're ranting and raving of it. We're if this is being brought up, other people are paying attention to it. Out of Arizona, there was a whole big thing, where an investigator, news investigator, did some research and found out, how these weapon systems like knives and other things are being found in schools. So it's there. It's not people ask like, well, how it's there. And the problem is when you talk about these, and we like to call it the invisible threat.
Mm-hmm.
People say like, well, what's the stats of recoveries? Well, listen, if I get something through, I'm not going to tell people, hey guys, I got this through. So there's not going to be a stat, on that.
Mm-hmm.
How many times something has gotten through, But when we're talking about actual like stats and recoveries, there's a trend that I think it's actually very important for us to talk about. And here's just an example. And these recoveries, I'm sure if anywhere else in the United States, they start digging through and start monitoring their stats, they're going to see similar trends. But this is something here from that was done in New York City, where they keep track of the recoveries of ghost guns, whether they were the buy, build, shoot kits or 3D printed weapons. And one of the alarming things that we could see in there is during the recovery period, that little yellow mark, the little dots where it's like 0, 0, 0.4, 9, 10, 28, a little decline and then back up. That's actually the 3D printed ones. So the top number is going to be the overall numbers of ghost guns in general, total completing with traditional and 3D printed. And then the yellow is just the 3D printed alone. So what the alarming rate is, if you notice, it's a growing trend, right? And for an example, between 2025 and 2026, right now in 2026, we're looking to outpace 2025. We have currently 3D printed firearms account for 43% of the actual total ghost guns recovered here in New York City.
Wow.
So if you could see, at some point you saw that New York State and New York City passed legislation and that buy, build, era kit. So whatever supply that was here or coming in was here, right? And then it peaked out and then it kind of slowly went down. But as that trend was going down, ghost guns and 3D printed versions started going up. And now we're in that upward swing of 3D printed weapons are coming up versus the buy, build, shoot kits.
So is there any reason for someone to buy one of the kits or to print a 3D gun for non-nefarious reasons? Now, I'm going to answer a little bit for what I think. You tell me if I'm wrong. One reason I can see for someone printing a 3D printed gun is I think about to our academy training, right? And going to the range. And so range instructors doing training would use dummy guns that they would carry around to demonstrate to class, especially recruit class who's never operated a firearm, how to manipulate it. Those firearms weren't capable of firing a round. They were just used for training purposes. outside of training, is there any reason someone should be ordering these kits or printing these guns?
Well, so kind of like a touchy subject, right?
Okay.
Federally, you're allowed to do it.
Mhm.
Which state you're not allowed to do it, right? You know, that's kind of the thing where, listen, in certain states, I'm a hobbyist, right? I like to manufacture things. It's for personal use. I'm a law-abiding citizen, right? It's for me. I'm not selling them. I have every legal right to manufacture them. You know what? I want to design it. I'm going to design my own firearm. I'm going to build it, and I'm going to use it, again, for myself, personal use. I'm not selling it, right? Some states, that's currently not allowed. Some states it is. So the problem is that the ease, how easy it is, how accessible it is, it ruins it for the individuals, that the law-abiding citizens that follow their laws, right? And want to practice their Second Amendment rights, right? And then the criminals maliciously use it and for profit, for sale, for crimes, right? And that's where that problem is. And because, listen, this is the world we live in. Perpetrators are perpetrators. Criminals are criminals. They're always going to find a way. They're going to do it for profit or for any other means, right? And that's where we kind of lay. It's that malicious intent. And unfortunately, it's, how do I put this? Our youth is going to be subject to it probably the most because of social media, because of the influences that are out there. You know, the way that some of these people in this 3D printing space, how they communicate the message, how it's cool, how it's fun. You know, sometimes they make gestures of like, it's, you know, we're just a bunch of autistic people coming together and we like to make things, and it lets us people of the same mindset come together as a community. You know, I'm not one to make that decision, but that message to the wrong person might take it the wrong way. You know, they might not be able to handle themselves when it comes to that judgment call, right? That's what you see. Or like a 12-year-old is like, oh wow, that one looks like a Nerf gun. I'm gonna try to make it. Or, you know, we just finished up our school year, right? A senior assassin's kind of big here in the state of New York, where they would go around with like water guns and like Nerf guns, and they would just run around the schools and play, you know, attack each other, shoot each other, and hunt, you know, kind of like a simple version of paintball or airsoft, right? But with these things now, you know, you have a group of individuals that wants to walk around the block with one of these right here, you know, but I make it pink, yellow, purple, orange. I put the word Nerf on it. You know, I put on Nerf on it. Think about that. Like, you're gonna be like, oh, they're gonna go to the park and play.
Yeah.
But they might be going to a mall to speak over a mall.
Do you guys remember? I'm sorry, Rod. That's a question for both of you. But do you remember a few years ago? I think it was in North Carolina. There was a shootout with the police, and the guy had a gun that appeared to be like a Nerf gun. You guys recall this?
No.
Yeah, I'll find a story. I'll send it around to you. This is now maybe, I'm trying. You know, I use COVID as the timeline for everything. It might have been right before COVID, but it was a situation like this. It was a gun that appeared to be like a toy.
Yeah.
It was capable of firing, and it got into got in a shootout with the I don't know if it's federal agents or local agents, local officers down in, I think it was North Carolina. But it's like, what do you do? Like, so Rod, I'll put this question to you as a law enforcement executive, whether it's the largest department in NYPD or, you know, a small department with 20 officers. What are you doing to prepare your officers? And how can you? Because you don't want officers to, every time they see a kid with a water gun, drawing their weapon and giving commands and, you know, doing a felony takedown. But you also want them to be able to protect themselves and the communities they're serving. So what do you do with this growing threat as a leader in law enforcement to prepare your officers?
So one of the biggest problems, Rudy, and Vic, you probably could co-sign this as well, is we train our officers in the academy, and every once in a while we'll do a semi-annual training. But we don't necessarily emphasize certain things in our training as much as we should. And sometimes training And I know this is one of the problems that we face within the NYPD. It's a day off. It's something where you could get out of going to work or being in a sector car. And there's kind of like a situation where the rank and file is going through the motions. One of the things that I would like to see is not only should there be this type of training in the academy, making sure that if a police officer comes across an individual that, sees a firearm that looks like the one that Victor shared, they recognize it and realize this may not just necessarily be a water gun. This may be a 3D printed gun or something else. The second thing is we got to make sure, like in our intact training, the cops are not just like going through the motions and daydreaming. This is something that could save lives, Rudy, and make sure that the cops are not putting themselves in harm's way and putting themselves at what I always use this phrase, a tactical disadvantage. So training, and I raised my hand before. I know you're going to come around and kick me in the private part now. Well, Rodney Harrison, what did you do when you were in charge? I will raise my hand. I could have done better. But now that we're here and we have a talented person like Vic Cardona and things that he's doing, and by the way, I want to believe that the Intel Bureau and the NYPD is doing a phenomenal job. But you also have a lot of small police departments that probably don't have that training component that need to get this information into the hands of their cops as well, so they don't overlook or oversee one of these 3D printed firearms.
So that's why, I took that to heart when I left, because I can see even when actively with the NYPD, how hard it is to actually train people. And even after years of doing this and putting out intel flyers and trying and have that education platform developed, how often you could see police officers that still don't understand the basic idea of a ghost gun. And I'll touch on that in a little bit, just with the simplest things of training, right? And how could outside of just safety, how could it jeopardize their career, right? To give you an example, during that buy, build, shoot kit, or let's say an individual 3D prints the bottom part of a gun, because you can get really, as you could see, you can get really detailed with it. I could write the word Glock on it. I could write the manufacturer's name on it. I could put all these different designs. But now if an individual has an original, let's just say a P80 frame or a 3D printed frame, and decides to use an OEM, an original Glock slide, a young police officer that hasn't been properly trained in identifying these things is going to see that gun. They're going to look at the slide. They're going to look at the branding, and depending on the slide, it might have a serial number on it. And they're going to say, you know what? That's the serial number for the weapon system, when in fact it's not. It's the receiver that's supposed to have the serial number on it. And next thing you know, they're going to talk to the district attorney's office. They're going to potentially, even worse, sign an affidavit saying that they recovered a Glock, when in fact it wasn't, And, thankfully the lab is the redundancy part for that. But you have that initial upfront port that down the road can cause problems,
Yeah.
So that's kind of like phase one right there for like how it can affect a police officer.
Hey, Vic, real quick, what's the charge? Was it 265 or is it something else under the New York State?
Nope. So the state actually has its own penal law charge, because a firearm is an operable firearm as a firearm, but there actually is ghost gear laws actually attached to it as well. So it's not like saying deface firearm or just CPW, but New York State has adopted actual ghost gun laws.
Yeah, I remember you told me one time before that this was, I think, even bigger threat over in Europe. Is that correct?
Internationally, yeah, in certain places like Australia, Canada now, Philippines, this is places where you can't get a gun at all. And being that you just need, hardware, homemade parts from a hardware store to complete some of these designs, you can make this stuff in your house.
Right.
Yeah, stuff like that. There's other little things that you can, like, let's just say here in the U.S., you could legally sell like the barrel liner or the screws or any of that stuff and get it sent to your house. In other countries, they won't prevent those quote unquote build kits, completion kits. So an individual can go to a hardware store and do it. But I want to touch back base a little bit, Ronnie, what you were saying, right? You know, another parts of that, officers now, you know, I guess we could be real with each other, right? They, sometimes they're, it seems like the younger generation is scared to work. They're scared to take police action. And when you have a threat like this, they're going to second guess themselves. Like, wait, is that a Nerf gun? Is that Hello Kitty? Like, they might not even want to question it, you know? And that's going to be the importance of identification, training, understanding of certain things when they pick it up, like looking at layer lines. I don't know if you can see it in from here, but when you print, there's these little lines in here. That's indication that something was 3D printed. So that's all very important when it comes to that training part. And it's one of the,
for a second, just because from where we are, it's hard to see those layer lines. Is that something you could see from a distance, or you have to be holding it in your hands actually?
You have the best part is holding it in your hands. You know, unless the design is print is horrible, or you could see it as chunky. But yeah, for the most part, you know. And then, like, listen, if the person's really good at what they're doing, it can come up, you know, essentially just smooth.
Wow.
You know, but that's kind of like the importance of like what we do with LNC. Like, you know, it's not just the private sector. We do offer training for law enforcement. You know, I've had the opportunity to teach at a few different academy classes, and I go really in depth about the threat. And, you know, we do offer other courses for other law enforcement agencies if they're interested. And, you know, again, once we launch our LMS, it's going to be a great platform where people can come in and really deep dive and get a complete understanding of the actual threat. And I go into real depth of like vulnerabilities and security.
Are you guys doing training for just, I know you're doing law enforcement, you're doing some work in school systems. What about parents, right? So through the school system, alerting parents, be mindful what's happening in your home. You know, if your kids are using 3D printers, or if they have a friend that's coming over, looks like a toy, maybe a gun, being vigilant. And then like with hospitals, that's another place, like Roddy and I have done some work with some hospitals. I suspect that could be another place where there's a lot of emotions, right? People feel like the doctor screwed up, lost a loved one, someone died, you know, people are coming in for all different reasons. And you have staff, security staff, who often aren't prepared to be the frontline defenders of for that space. And are you able to train them in other private security?
Absolutely, 100%. So with respect to the schools, we've already done our outreach here locally. We started speaking to the higher level parts of the education system, making them aware that there's a particular threat that's out there. You know, there's a lot of interest. Are we willing to talk to the community? I'm working doing something more locally. I'm trying to arrange something with my local police department, trying to hold something at a community meeting, you know, bring that attention out there, spread that awareness. But as far as, yes, we offer that, you know, if someone wants to engage with us, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help. We offer a bunch of different services outside of what we just mentioned today. And we're very excited. And we're very proud of the work that we've done and what we're going to continue to do and continue to bring out. And again, it's one of the big things for us is, you know, it's kind of our motto, leave nothing to chance. You know, reach out to LNC, see where you could best position yourself against this threat, because there are people out there that are using it with malicious intent. And unfortunately, us as a community, as a society, as a nation, we're very vulnerable to this.
Hey, Vic. I know our time is winding down. Two quick questions, and I know you're removed, so you may not have the numbers, but how much violence, percentage-wise, out of gun violence is happening, and we'll just use New York City for now, are related to ghost guns, a roundabout percentage-wise? My first question, and I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts about how Manjami, the individual that shot the healthcare president, Mangione, excuse me, as well as the 234 Park Avenue shooting. I believe that was a ghost gun as well. Can you just real quickly talk about that and share how that can be something could have been interdicted if there was better training in place?
Okay, so with statistics, don't quote me, but let's just say, for an example, generally, like let's say for this year right now, ghost guns count for about maybe 7% to 10% of the overall total firearms recovered for the year, right? And out of that, maybe half were used in actual crimes, outside of recoveries from like search warrants and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is where like you're talking about like your robberies, your burglaries, your shooting incidents, and so forth. And that number keeps growing year over year. With respect to the Mangione case, there is things, especially when he deals in the private sector side, you know, especially these high level executives, they have their own GSOC, they have their own analysts assigned to it. You know, they get these threat letters all the time, and, you know, people get put into these different buckets, you know, like high priority, maybe, you know, or listen, we'll put this guy, you know, we know about him, but we're not going to really deep dive into him because we have too much work, right? There was indicators and stuff that, you know, he was posting. There was things that are out there, like if you understood the space, if you understood like the clues, the Easter eggs, you probably had a better chance of understanding that he was into 3D printing weapons. So now let's just combine that, right? Now let's just say I got an individual that's upset for the reasons he's upset for it. You know, now he's making potential threats. Now he has access to a weapon system that cannot be obtained through traditional manners by purchasing it legally through a store. Combine all those factors, that B category, you know, threat now should become an A category. And it goes down to, you know, the proper training. And then it's not just understanding what a ghost gun is, it's understanding the ideology, you know, the terminology, you know, what words, keywords they use, and stuff like that. You know, that kind of stuff. With Park Avenue, the gentleman, he constructed his own firearm. You know, he built it. Took a bunch of different parts. It wasn't 3D printed, but he took a bunch of parts and he put it together.
Right.
You know? And again, you know, an individual, like, let's just say you have a pistol, you have a rifle. Those things come apart. We've seen it at the range. You can take it apart. I want to alter it. I want to make it this. I want to change the upper receiver. There's so many different ways of doing it. But,
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you one thing that you hadn't mentioned, projectiles, right? So the actual rounds that are being fired, are those able to be printed via 3D also?
They're in that space is here, and it's now, and it's getting better. So you can print them. They will fire. You know, there's definitely a bunch of different designs, you know, less effective and ultra effective. But you can actually then, yes, in some shape or form, you can actually manufacture your ammo by additive manufacturing, 3D printing.
I will say the most, besides this being, you know, I've heard you talk about 3D guns and these kits numerous times. And every time I hear it, I'm never put at ease, or it never impacts me any less, you know, considering how many times I've heard about it. And I just think about my family. My daughter was out in Vegas this week. Like, she's leaving today, thank God. You know, but the whole time you're just worried, like she's going to a casino or she's going to a club, and this stuff in this church, school, hospitals, you know, airports. The threat is so real. I'm surprised that you even have time to talk to us, because I would imagine you would be flying all over the country, training people and alerting them to this threat. And what is it? What do you think it is that people are still hesitant? It's because we haven't seen enough shootings with 3D printed guns and ghost guns, or as just a society, we're just so immune to it because there's so many shootings that we don't even think about anymore. What do you think it is that's taking a while for people to actually embrace what this threat really is?
Oh man, it's a mix of both. I think it's a mix of everything, right? It's can we afford the extra training? Is it within our budgets? You know, that's one. You know what? These things happen all the time. It doesn't matter if people get illegal firearms. You know, that happens all the time. Or, you know what, knock on wood, we've already seen some of these mass shootings with ghost guns. Wait till they start being 3D printed.
Right.
That's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be there. I go back to like our schools. I know we're at that time to close, but you mentioned before about parents understanding what their kids are doing, but that also falls in line with the schools. We developed an auditing service where we can actually find, you want to engage, you want to get the technology to prevent the kids from printing it. But what are they doing for the past 12 months, right? Or let's be proactive. What are they looking up? So we have an auditing service where we can actually look at that browser history, and we can actually see if any child or even a teacher insider threat, right? Security guard. We've seen that here just recently, 2 years ago. Security guard, a known anarchist, was arrested out of Queens. He was a Long Island security guard, right? Now you can actually see if someone's actually in that particular space. But what also affords an opportunity, it's not just to give the kid the stick, but an intervention that allows the school to jump in and say, hey, why are you looking at this? Is there something going on?
Right.
But yeah, just to recap on that last part, it's just a multiple factor.
Hey, Rudy. One more last thing for me. I think one of the biggest problems in law enforcement and in private security is we hold our breath. We hold our breath and just hope it doesn't happen to us, and that's why you see too often people not investing in companies like LNC. Now, what's going to happen here is just I pray to God. I pray to God this never happens. But unfortunately, this is the world we live in. There's going to be an incident where someone's going to use a 3D printed firearm or put together a ghost gun and commit some type of mass shooting incident. Once again, I pray it doesn't happen, but this is what we have to deal with in our country.
Yeah,
that's when people will start ringing the alarm about training their personnel, be it security, be it the law enforcement agency, about this emerging threat. So, Vic, Rudy's right. You'd be surprised why you even had the time to come on our show and talk about it. But the truth of the matter is this: a lot of people in public safety are holding their breath, and unfortunately, we're not proactive and we are reactive. And after something happens, then we start putting things in place, unfortunately.
Absolutely. We see it time and time again. And I hope, if those who are listening and watching today, share this episode with everyone because it impacts all of us. It's not just a policing issue. It's not just a school issue. Everyone should be flooding the LNC's website and learning more. And hey, if you're in charge of security anywhere, you should be having these guys come in and train your folks, whether you use their learning management system, which is going live. You don't have a date yet, right? But
no, quarter
fall
four
this year.
Yep.
Okay, so it'll be going in the next few months, because summer's almost over. So make sure you check them out. LNC Security, leave nothing by chance. Vic Cardona, thank you. You have educated us, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you. For those who are watching, please continue to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and keep checking in with us every week. And Rodney, I'll leave you with this. Make sure you leave a nice gift. You're at this wedding. It's a destination wedding. People cheap out on a destination wedding. It's like, I had to fly here. You got the money. Leave a nice gift.
I knew it was coming.
You felt it coming. I was building up to it.
I felt it.
Well done.
Well done.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm honored.
Appreciate you. Thank you. All right. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Law enforcement is one of the most dangerous and demanding jobs in the world. Every shift, every call for service, and every encounter carries real risk. Stay vigilant, manage that risk wisely, and above all, make sure you go home to your family. Stay safe out there.